Hello and welcome to another episode of Agile TD Mondays. Today with Jaap and his talk about DevOps and what it means for testing. But before you can enjoy his talk, please remember that you can still vote for our community talks. Head over to the Agile Testing Days community talk vote page and vote for your 6 favorite talks and get the chance to win a free ticket for Conference Day 4. And good luck to you all, and now to Jan.
Thank you very much all for joining. It's very strange to do a webinar because during a webinar you can't see if there's any audience. I know there's at least about 10 people listening. That's Sabine and some colleagues of mine. But of course, everybody, welcome. Here you see the opening sheet and how you can reach me by Twitter or by email. I want to talk with you about DevOps. Yes, the world is changing, and yes, the world keeps changing. Changing is the only constant in IT. Where still some organizations are still observing the changes that Agile is bringing us. And the next change is already implemented in some organizations. So it's not coming up, this change, it's already there in some organizations. And this new change is, of course, DevOps. The central question in this webinar is, what is DevOps? And does DevOps bring a big change for testing? Does it mean something for us? And do we need to prepare us for DevOps? That's the central question of this webinar. Well, if you look at DevOps and ask a lot of people who are not really into DevOps and ask them, what is DevOps? You often hear, well, it's just a dev team, the development team, and the ops team, just combine it into one big team. And well, it's true, but it's definitely not the complete story. There's much more to it. One thing about the term DevOps, some people say that DevOps is not the right way to develop us in. We should do business development ops or biz DevOps. Everybody who is in DevOps knows that the business is already part of development. We already saw at the implementation of Agile that the business was combined with development, and they are already in one team. So there's no such thing as biz DevOps. Within DevOps, there's already the business in. There's much more to DevOps than just putting these two teams together. If we put it into a historical context, I would like to look at 2 different aspects. First teaming and then delivery. If we look at teaming, in Waterfall we had different teams for all kind of activities. We had the business team, requirements, development, testing, delivery, and operations in different teams. And the work was thrown from one team over the wall to the other team, and they had to work with it. And that's the way we used to build systems for years. And then Agile came, and we combined the business by means of the product owner, the requirements, development and testing into one team. But most of the organizations left development and operations out of the team. So we combined these business requirement development and testing already, but left some parts out of it. In DevOps, we take all these activities, all system-related activities, product-related activities in one team. There should be nobody working on the product within the product lifecycle on the product who's not in the team. Second aspect in the historical context is the delivery. We saw with Waterfall that after the initiation of the project, it took a long time before we started to deliver, and when we delivered very much value. So the client had to wait quite a long time and got a tremendous amount of functionality at the end of the project. At Agile, we already saw that we started to deliver more often. Every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, we delivered value to the business. So the feedback time got smaller, the amount of functionality we delivered got smaller. But from a time perspective, we delivered earlier. In DevOps, we see that we deliver very, very often. Some organizations claim they deliver value, they deliver something into production every day, or even multiple times a day. I even know an organization, a Dutch organization actually, who claims that they are actually delivering value, that they are delivering into production a couple of hundred times a day. That is very often. And when I was discussing this with this organization, I found out that myself was actually still thinking in the difference between development and operations, because I found out in this conversation I had that the content was also part of delivery. And I said, yeah, but delivery is new software into production. And I said, there's one sort of delivery, but content is also delivery into production. It's a change into production. So these organizations claiming that they do 10 times a day deliver value, or a couple of hundred times a day, they do not only deliver new functionality, but also deliver new content. So new hotels on a hotel website, or new books on a web shop, or new clothes on a clothing web shop, or whatever. So the difference between operational deployment and development deployment, there's no difference between operational and development deployment. So these are two main aspects of DevOps, but is that all there is to say? If you do these two things, make one team and deliver often value, more often than Agile, are you doing DevOps? In my opinion, there's much more to DevOps. And here we've got a problem, because there's not one single source of truth about DevOps. There's not one single source of definition like we have in Agile. In Agile, we have the Agile Manifesto, we have the Scrum Guide. So there's one source that defines what Scrum or what Agile is. There's not such a source for DevOps. So every definition of DevOps and every explanation of DevOps is more the opinion of the person telling it than absolute truth. So I'm giving you now my opinion. I think there are 3 more characteristics which are very important for DevOps, but that's my opinion. The first one is ultra-fast feedback from the end client. I've been involved in an organization who was using DevOps. It's a huge internet web store, and they were getting ultra-fast feedback by these big screens hanging on the wall, and they could, every time a day, they could see what the delivery of new features or the delivery of new jeans or other clothes or shoes were doing with the sales, were doing with the conversion. So they were building something, they had an idea in the morning, and yeah, maybe we should build this new button or new screen, and they put it into production halfway the day, and they were just checking all the time what this new feature was doing with the conversion. And if they saw, oh, this is bad, they had a rollback, and they went to the previous version. They could get fast feedback immediately. And I would like to make a comparison between dolphins and fast feedback. You could say that waterfall was a submarine. It goes underwater, it stays weeks, maybe months under the water, and comes then above the water, and maybe the world has changed. We could say that Agile is a kind of orca who is going under the water, stays a couple of days under the water, and then comes above the water. And DevOps are kind of dolphins who come above the water multiple times a day to see how it is. So ultra-fast feedback is a very important characteristic for DevOps. The second characteristic is that the DevOps team covers the total life cycle of the system. And if you look at Agile, it's somehow strange that in a very important moment in the life cycle of the system is turned over to other people. You see here the caterpillar to the butterfly with the different stages. And you could say that the Agile team, as we know it, is responsible for the caterpillar and the changeover period. And by the time it really gets important, the value is actually delivered and lived by, the butterfly period, it's turned over to another team. That's not the case with DevOps. If you're not covering the total life cycle from caterpillar till butterfly, you're not doing DevOps. And there should be nobody outside of the team who is doing activities for the system in the life cycle. And third, and in my opinion, last characteristic is extreme automation of system development. Last few years, we've seen all kind of new development, all kind of new possibilities for organizations, for development organization to automate their system development. And that became extremely popular. And yeah, we use all these kind of tools to deliver value as fast as possible. Speed is very important in DevOps, and we use automation to get this speed. What are the challenges for organizations who implement DevOps? Well, first of all, you could say that there are two main challenges for organizations who implement DevOps. There's a technical challenge, how to make this automation possible, how to reach the speed. And then we're talking about continuous deployment, continuous delivery, continuous integration, etc., etc. This is a highly technical change. But there's also the cultural change. Organizations, people in organizations have to work differently to make DevOps possible. Let's look into the technical change first. Here's a picture, and I didn't find the ultimate source of this picture, but this picture tells you the difference between continuous integration, continuous delivery, continuous deployment, and DevOps. And what we see in continuous integration is, in this picture, is that DevOps, in DevOps we do continuous integration, we do continuous delivery, continuous deployment, and we also cover the operate stage. So all these continuous activities are part of DevOps. What we also see is that we test in every stage. Of course, in the coding and building, so in the Agile activities, we do testing, but we also test in the continuous integration. We also test in continuous delivery. We also test in continuous deployment. So testing is really integrated in all these activities. And yes, we also test in the operate stage. So testing is part of all these activities, and that means a lot of tooling. And I found this picture on the internet. Here you see the source of it. And there are tools for version control we use. There are tools for build and deployment. There are tools for functional and non-functional testing. And there are tools for provisioning and change management. All different kind of tools who help in different stages for different activities. And of course, there's nobody, well, maybe there's somebody, but most of the people don't know all these tools. But everybody's got a specialty when they are in the DevOps team, and they know which tool to use. So the combining these tools is really a challenge for organizations. And I got this question during the rehearsal: is there maybe one tool to cover it all? No, there's not one tool to rule them all. And here we already have the title of the proposal I will do next year for the Agile testing days, because I found out that we need different tools for different purposes. Let's look at the cultural approach. Personally, I think the cultural approach is more difficult than a technical approach. I think a technical challenge. The technical challenge is solvable. The cultural challenge is bigger, is more difficult to overcome. What is the technical challenge for DevOps? Well, we combine two people from two teams, the dev team and the ops team, who have a different view on a different approach on risk. People who are in the development area, they like change. They like the newest tools and the newest way of working, and change is good, and we should change, we should experiment more. Some people say if you haven't experimented 1 week or 1 day, then that's not good. So change as much as possible. Wow, cool. The people on the operations side, for them, change is risk. They have to be sure that everything goes on in production smoothly. So they want to keep things the same as it used to be. And every change is risk. So this approach to risk for these two different teams is so different that it's difficult for these two teams, for these people, to really become one team with one approach to risk. And at one of the clients who was, in this case, trying to implement DevOps, they had this big room where the team was located, and when you came into the room, to the left, there were all the people who were in the development area, who like to develop systems, and to the right, there were the people who were doing operations. So it was not a really multifunctional team that was interlinked with each other. And you really have to switch places to let the operations people do development work and development people do the operations work before they start to understand each other and understand each other's challenges and differences. So the cultural approach, in my opinion, is bigger than the technical approach. And also the steering of the team will change. Maybe you know the 3 Amigo approach of managing the multifunctional team, the Scrum team. And if you don't know it, I would advise you to study it. There's a lot of information on the internet. But the 3 Amigos are a business, product owner, development and testing, and they do the short-term planning and control within the team. And in DevOps, you will not have the 3 Amigos, but the 4 Amigos, because operations is as important as development. So what does DevOps mean for testing? A lot of people say that, well, again, I hear people say that DevOps is the end of testing. So yeah, we're now in 2017, but DevOps became quite popular in 2016. So is it the end of testing? Well, I'm getting a bit cynical about this. I have 20 years of experience in testing now, and when I started in testing, rapid application became popular, and people were saying, oh, are you going for a career in testing? Don't do that, because testing will die because of rapid application development, and testing survived. And then we got 4GL, we got development tools, we got test tools, we got Agile, now we have low-code tools. And with every development, people are saying it's the end of testing. And I don't believe that anymore. And in my opinion, DevOps is also not the end of testing. I think there's a deeper source why we will always have some kind of testing. Of course, testing will change, but we will need the skill of testing in our projects, in our teams. And it's got to do with the problem-solving mind versus the critical thinking mind. A lot of developers have a very well-developed problem-solving mind, while testers do have more a critical thinking mind, and we need both skills in our teams. What will be the consequences for testing? First of all, DevOps, in my opinion, is Agile in extreme. Everything we have learned in Agile is getting more extreme in DevOps. So multifunctional team is getting more multifunctional. Deliver value very frequently. We deliver value more frequently. Use of tools, we use more tools. So organizations who are working in the classical waterfall way, if they want to do waterfall, I would say first do Agile. That change is that's smaller than the change to DevOps. And if you became Agile, then do DevOps. So everything we learned on testing by the introduction of Agile is getting more extreme in DevOps. Second thing is that the testing professional will become more multifunctional. With the introduction of Agile, We had to be able to support development. We had to be able to help the business owner, the product owner. We had to be able to do business analysis work. We had to understand what the DBA was doing. And now we get this extra function, operations. And as testers, we also should be able to do the operations work. And what I've seen in practice is that testers are very good in the operations work, really. I think there's a logic to this. Testers have a very broad view on the system. They know how the system works. They know how different parts of the system are interlinked. And so they can help users on the phone. They can make a good analysis when something goes wrong. Based on their test knowledge, they can do the operations work very well. So yeah, we become more multifunctional. And also a bit the same like Agile, the product becomes more important than the project or the process. In Agile, we do not have a project anymore. So the product is really becoming very important, and everything is done to get the product right. And we don't have a project plan. We don't have a start or an end date. We don't have all those things we know from projects. Fourth thing is continuous testing. This organization who changes things into production, mostly content, multiple times a day, they will not test every change they will make. If they add a new hotel to their website or add a new clothing thing or a new book on their website, they're not testing it. But all these changes made during the day could introduce a problem. So these organizations, they start doing continuous testing. They just test all the time. They put things into production, they deliver things into production, and they just test all the time, and maybe they find something which is already into production. Which brings me to the next one. Testing into production will become normal in DevOps. And a lot of testers are saying, don't do that, that's a risk. Ooh, testing into production. Yes, it will become normal. I've seen this in the organizations. They just upload new content or minor changes, and they have a test account, and they know if they make an order with this test account, they should not deliver it. And that's the way they do testing into production. And testing also becomes monitoring. A lot of test tools help us to see what's happening into production. And we use all these skills we had, we developed to do the testing as a kind of monitoring. A lot of testers also tend to get used to learn themselves well in monitoring tools very fast, because these tools look a bit like testing tools. So I see some people, some testers who get a bit out of testing and start becoming the people who monitor the production. And yes, automated testing, standard in DevOps. You cannot do professional DevOps without test automation. So every tester who's listening, who is not good into test automation, please get these skills, school yourself into test automation. Yes, I'm 20 years into testing, and this evening I will go to a meeting to learn more about test automation. And last but definitely not least, exploratory testing. In DevOps, the pace is so high, you do not have the time to do exploratory testing. Sorry, you do not have the time to do scripted testing. Exploratory testing will be the standard in a DevOps environment. In my opinion, quite often, exploratory testing should be the standard in Agile. In some particular situations, you can still use test scripts, but only when you're doing checking or detailed calculations or something like that. So also here, if you're not good in exploratory testing, if exploratory testing is new to you, I would advise you to get these skills, to learn these skills as fast as possible. The market will ask for that. So I think these are the main influences on testing for DevOps. If you've seen something that you think, oh, that's new to me, continuous testing, oh, never done that. Doing operations work, exploratory testing, I'm not very good at this. I think it's time to adapt. You're not too late, I guess. Still a lot of organizations are doing classical way of testing or don't do continuous testing. But I think within short period of time, let's say 3 to 5 years, all organizations will do something in between Agile and DevOps. Some will be extremely fast and extremely on the DevOps side. Some will do more Agile. But the classical way of testing will disappear, I guess. So I think so. It is time to adapt. And that will bring me to the questions, but not before. Yeah, it's already been mentioned, but please go to the community voting. Here you see the webpage. So agiletestingdays.com, and you will see the community voting. You could also vote for me. I would love if you would vote for me. I will not talk about testing, but more about that the classical way of planning your career do not work. And I think good career planning is a combination of exploring and energy. If you're interested in that, please vote for me. If you're interested in something else, vote for something else. And you can win a ticket.
I have a question. Is there an influence on the team constellation?
Yeah, the extra work, the operations work, of course. I also get often the question, do teams get bigger? And I think it would not be wise to make teams bigger because most of the teams I see are between 6 and 9 people. If you have got more than 9 people, cooperation in the team changes. And it will become more a crowd than a team. So to keep teams small, I would say make sure they're not bigger than 9 people, but you do more work with the team, so you get more teams.
And before I say goodbye to you, I would like to tell the viewers who's going to be my guest next week. Next week, Paul Gerard will tell you more about a new model of for testing. And don't forget to tune in next week at 4 p.m.
I've seen this presentation by Paul, and I advise you to look. It's great.
Thank you. Thank you, Jan Jaap.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your time, for your talk. It was very interesting. And feel free to get in touch with Jan Jaap on Twitter or write him an email. And I think he will gladly answer any questions.
Of course, of course. Okay, thank you very much. Bye.
See you. Bye.